Okay, if there's anyone struggling with analysis assignment number 2, I'm making this video to help you out. I'm going to do the assignment, but I'm going to use a different data set, and I want to emphasize that I am not doing analysis number 2 with the data set you need to do it with. And I won't be able to do every single step. But I think I can demonstrate how to do every single step. So if you have questions, you can hopefully look to my example and mimic what I do and get the right answer for analysis assignment number 2. So just to start with, I have my Word document open up to analysis assignment number 2. I also have SPSS open and Excel because we're going to be plotting a snake plot. And so I have these three documents, programs open. So let's just start with number 1. So basically, number 1 is just asking us to copy and paste a dendrogram using the Ward's approach and Euclidean distance. Um, Only for the 7 perception variables. There's going to be 9 different data points. 7 of them are perception variables, and 2 of them are purchase outcome variables. And so we have to be very clear on you're mostly only going to work with those 7 perception variables. And so let's get started. So the first thing to do is open your data set. So I want to emphasize again, I am not using the data set for analysis assignment number 2. I'm going to use this jobs data, um, which is a little bit different. It only has perception variables. It does not have purchase outcomes. And so to get the dendrogram, you just go to Analyze, Classify, then you go to this button. Start with Plots, and you want to make sure dendrogram is selected. Then go to Method. Make sure you choose Ward's method and Euclidean distance because that's what it says to do in problem number 1. And then I'm going to bring over my 5 perception variables. You'll have 7 of them. Remember to only bring over those 7. Then you just hit OK. And I'm going to scroll down. It's still processing. And here we go. Here's the giant dendrogram. I'm going to double click this and just hit Edit, Copy Chart. And I realize this is going to be a super big chart, but um, doesn't matter. So I copied and pasted it, and I'm done with step number 1. And it's okay that there's that much space. It's okay. So number 2 basically asks us to examine the dendrogram and decide on the appropriate numbers of clusters. Now there really isn't a wrong answer for number 2 as long as you can defend it. So I'd recommend if you're having trouble um, with problem number 2 is to read over um, the slides and basically just figure out a way to defend why you would use 2 clusters or 3 clusters or 4 clusters. Whatever you choose um, is you just have to have a reason why, and you get that one right. So number 3 is compare the results of the clustering with the results of the k-mean clusterings for a 2-cluster solution. Now that's important to remember because in problem number 4 we're going to do a 4-cluster solution. So let's get started. So we go to Analyze. We actually go right back to what we did before. Um, Now I'm just going to double check. Okay, method is exactly how we did it in number 1, so we don't need to change anything there. We just need to save it this time. And we hit single solution, and because it's a 2-cluster solution, we make sure that we put number 2 in there. Hit OK, let it run, and I'm just going to double check to see if it was saved, and you can check this in your data view. You should have a new column here. You can also check it in your variable view and make sure you have a new row. All right, and then we just have to do the 2-cluster analysis with the k-means analysis. So we go to Analyze, Classify, k-means cluster. Go to Number of clusters. Now it already had 2, but just make sure you have the right number in there. bring over your variables, um, and then you hit, no, we don't need to do anything there. We just need to hit save and check cluster membership. Once again, hit OK. I'm just going to double check that it did save, and in fact it did. And so now the question asks us to report on the cross tabulation of the k-means and hierarchical cluster membership. So to do that, we're going to use crosstabs. So we go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Crosstabs. And here are my two new saved cluster data points. So I'm going to put word method in rows and cluster number of cases in columns. And it could be vice versa. It doesn't really matter. And then you just hit OK. All right, so we just have to copy and paste this chart into the document. And I actually prefer to use, I have Windows 7, so I have the snipping tool. I prefer to use that because that allows me just to drag what I want to copy, and then that makes it a picture, copy it over, and it goes into Word just so easy. Now it's a picture. So now we have to analyze this. What percentage of, in analysis number 2, it's 100 data points. With the data I'm working with, it's 141 data points. You can see that under the row total. And so what percentage? So basically, what you're looking at is how many align perfectly. And with my data set, it's 64 and 62. So the answer is 64 plus 62 divided by the total number of data points. Um, so the answer is, 89%. So 89% is the answer, and your answer in the analysis number 2 will also be a percent. And then just quickly, what does this indicate? 89% is a really high number, so this is highly robust. And I misspelled robust. Okay, moving on to number 4, we basically do the exact same thing, but rather than use 2 clusters, we use 4 clusters. So I'm going to just do that real quick. So I'm just doing the exact same thing, but just switching it from 2 to 4. Now, this is going to be a little tricky in your assignment. Now I saved them. This I'm looking at in variable view. Is that the names are pretty similar, so you just got to make sure that you recognize which one is the 4 cluster and which one is the 2 cluster. And I know 8 and 9 are the newest data points, and so I just have to remember, you know, when I perform the next analysis, that I'm choosing the correct hierarchical and k-means clusters. And so once again, it's just asking me to report on the cross tabulation. So I'll quickly do that. Analyze descriptive statistics, crosstabs. Like I said, don't mess this one up. So I'm going to expand this, and I remembered this was my 4 cluster word method, and this is my cluster numbers of cases with the 4 clusters. Hit OK. Once again, I'm just going to use my snipping tool. You could also just copy and paste it, like I said. I think the snipping tool just makes it much easier to handle in Word. Okay, what percentage of data points? Okay, it's going to be 24 plus 12 plus 55 plus 1 divided by 141, which equals, I think it's something like 65. Yep, 65%. Number C, what does this indicate about the robustness of the clustering solution? 65, I mean, it's moderate, so it's moderate robustness. Um, in your assignment, it's going to be a little bit more obvious. Just give you a clue, it's going to be much higher than 65. Um, so in the last question, um, this is basically what we did for analysis assignment number 1. So we just have to remember what we did. So report the centroid means of the cluster for the 7 perception variables. So just like we did in analysis assignment number 1, we go to descriptive statistics, or actually com compare means. We're going to put in our 5 perceptions. I'm going to get rid, I hit options, and I get rid of number of cases and standard deviation. You don't have to, just it's going to compute the means. Okay, sorry. I actually was messing up on that. I misread number 5. So it says report the means of these clusters for the 7 perception variables, and compute the means for the 2 purchase outcome variables. Okay, I kind of messed up. I misread question number 5, so I'm starting over. So number 5 says profile the 2 cluster solution. So that's important. We're only using the 2 cluster solution. And we have to report the mean score of these clusters for the 7 perception variables and for the purchase outcome variables. So I can only show you one of them since I don't have purchase outcome. So it's essentially what we did in analysis assignment number 1. You go to compare means. Means, I already have them in there, but you put your perception variables in the dependent list, and then make sure that you put um, the 2 cluster Ward method in the independent list. You could probably use the k-means. It, it would work out the exact same. So then you just hit OK. Then once again, you are just copying and pasting this report. And now for your assignment, you have to do it again and copy and paste it for the outcome variables. So then he also wants us to make a snake plot. That's really easy to do. You just double click on this data and copy it. You can copy it over to Excel and then just copy this data and then insert line chart, and voila, you have it. And then once again, I'm just going to grab it using the snippet tool. Then you just have to analyze the 2 clusters based on their differences. So you do cluster 1 and then cluster 2. So for example, for my data, looking up here, cluster 1, salary is important and work-life balance is important. For cluster 2, it looks like salary is the highest by far. So salary is by far the most important. And our very last step, um, once again, just something, a hypothesis test that we did in analysis assignment number 1. You go to Analyze, Compare Means, Independent Sample t-tests, put your perception variables in there, and put, remember, your 2 cluster Ward method in the grouping variables. Define group. Group 1 is just one of your clusters. Group 2 is the second cluster. You hit OK, OK, and it'll spit out the report you need. And then just copy and paste this test in there. You don't necessarily actually have to copy and paste this text.